On New Year's Eve, UFC President Dana White committed an act of domestic violence against his wife. It all went down in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico, at a club called El Squid Row. It is predominantly a hotspot for college kids when getting away from the United States and simply looking to party. They even offer you tube shots when you walk in at times. White would slap his wife not once, but twice, after others in their respective VIP area intervened. We have seen how quiet ESPN has been, with Stephen A. Smith essentially saying he was not going to say anything negative about White because they are friends. They are also rep by the same talent agency. Smith co-host Molly Kieram said, "We will not judge." Those without a conflict of interest, like Dan Le Batard, called out the powers that be for doing the bare minimum and not making it a lead story. Ariel Helwani has been vocal about his feelings on the matter, saying he thought ESPN's handling was with kid gloves and they failed in their coverage. But now a fighter has addressed it.
You know, you should never put your hands on a woman. I don't know. I don't know the repercussion that comes along with somebody at his stature running these businesses and doing something like that. I have no clue. It's not a good look for sure.
Do you think the UFC should sanction him in any way, or maybe suspend him like they would do a fighter, or stay out of it? Or
I'm staying out of it because I'd be talking on my ass. I don't know what should happen. You know, I don't know what should happen.
Dustin the Diamond Poirier spoke with Eddie Mercado. I think the main takeaway from the fallout is this. Not many want to speak on this because of how Dana White runs his business. He has created an empire through taking advantage of the fighters and being given incredible leeway from those who could have, at the very least, reeled him in along the journey. It is quite clear, from ESPN to other outlets and reporters who wish to stay in White's good graces, that they believe he should stay as president and the story should go away because it is bad for business and thus bad for them. However, when it comes to Dana White's past, look no further than his own mother, who said on the record, "I don't want to take anything away from him for what he's done for MMA and the UFC. I mean, Dana has a high school education and that's it. I think it's pretty amazing the things he's been able to do in MMA and the UFC, but he's not a good person," she said in a 2011 interview. "He seems to have lost his character somewhere along the way. He mistreats people. It's terrible the way he speaks to women and treats women. That really bothers me, because I don't believe I've ever brought him up to behave like that. Everyone knows that he puts Tiger Woods to shame," June said, accusing her son of repeatedly cheating on his wife. "Plenty of the ring card girls sleep with him. There's 2 of them I know for sure. He slept with his sister-in-law in my house, which made me absolutely furious." June insinuated that her son's infidelity led to other past instances of domestic violence between the couple, which would have occurred years before this past New Year's Eve incident. I mean, he goes after any girl he wants and usually gets them. His wife is, they're constantly fighting. The honeymoon, she gave him the worst black eye I've ever seen and nearly lost his eye. So I don't know if that's his way of handling that, but he's gone overboard with handling that. Now, another uncompromised individual, of course, looked no further than Ariel Helwani, the Adam Schefter of MMA News, who broke the story of McGregor fighting Nate Diaz and Brock Lesnar's return to the UFC. Prior to having his credential taken from him and being banned from covering UFC events, Helwani recalled White repeatedly telling him to go cover Bellator. When Helwani asked what he did wrong, White said, in the most Trumpian way, "You're too negative." Yet another uncompromised individual in the media is former ESPNer Jamil Hill, who wrote for The Atlantic the following: "White has not been subject to an avalanche of media coverage or nonstop discussions about whether he should be fired, fined, or otherwise. His behavior hasn't been condemned by UFC parent company Endeavor or UFC's biggest TV partner ESPN, which reached a 5-year, $1.5 billion broadcast rights deal in 2018 to air MMA events, and then in 2019 extended the arrangement to make ESPN the sport's exclusive pay-per-view provider. These major stakeholders in the UFC are best positioned to hold White accountable, but they don't seem particularly motivated to get involved. Endeavor isn't commenting, and neither is ESPN. In fact, when I requested comment, a spokesperson declined to elaborate on network officials' coverage decisions and instead emailed me multiple clips showcasing ESPN's news coverage of White across the network's digital, TV, radio, and podcasting platforms. Hill would add the following in her column for The Atlantic as well. The issue isn't that ESPN has ignored White's situation entirely. It's just that the coverage of the incident has overall been pretty soft. Having worked at ESPN for 12 years, I know intimately the difference between cursory coverage and a nonstop national conversation fueled by the massive sports media machine. White would say, there's one thing that you never bounce back from, and that's putting your hands on a woman. This was when Ray Rice knocked out his then fiancée, Janae Palmer. More from Jamil. The general dismissal of violence toward women is a contributing factor to White being viewed so sympathetically. Unfortunately, the worst consequence he faces, as of now, is a canceled TV show. White's TBS reality series Power Slap was supposed to premiere on Wednesday, but the network has rescheduled it to January 18th. I'll be surprised if the network goes through with a show that is based on competitive, open hand hitting and has White's name attached. The grand irony of all of this is that White doesn't actually seem eager to accept the graciousness that others are so willing to give him. You've heard me say for years there's never an excuse for a guy to put his hands on a woman, he said, and now here I am on TMZ talking about it. White isn't offering any excuses, so why is almost everyone else doing it? That is the question. That is exactly the question. Because it's Jamil Hill bringing this up. We have brought it up. Ariel Helwani has brought it up because he is saying, stop making excuses for me. So the question is, if you are doing so, why?